It seems like more and more over the years, Elon Musk has been pilloried by the press, by social media, by protesters, and even random folks on the street. And this criticism is justified to some extent. But I believe we have to take the bad part of Elon Musk along with the good as a complete package, because in the history of the world, he might be unprecedented. And I firmly believe that the world without him would be much worse than the world with him in it. Let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. First of all, happy Mother's Day to Lane, or Misinformation as most of you know her, and to my mom, Joan. And because we're going to be talking about Elon Musk today, also to May Musk, and to all the mothers out there. Happy Mother's Day, enjoy your special day. So, to the point, this is obviously my opinion today, but I want to try to justify why Elon Musk as a package is so important. I'm going to start with a quote from George Bernard Shaw, Irish man about town from the middle of the 19th century to the middle of the 20th century. A big thanks to James Stevenson for posting this morning in Rebellionaires. And by the way, Rebellionaires is great. You should check them out. So big thanks to James for posting this quote because it sort of jogged my mind and gave me a good entree into this topic. So the quote from George Bernard Shaw again is, "The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man." So let's take this quote and make it a little bit more mathematical by looking at one of my favorite curves, which is the bell curve, with standard deviations placed on top of it. If we look at this bell curve, you can see that the middle part, or the sort of salmon colored part, which is about 68.2 or so percent of the population, if we're going to look at a population, might be the quote normal people, the people who are happy and content to have the world as it is, not to make a bunch of changes to it, and to go through life being relatively productive, I guess, but not making a big dent in the universe. And that's totally fine. That's the majority of the population. What's interesting is when you start moving away from that, when you get into the blue color, which is another 27% or so of the population, and then you get down to the green, which is like 2.2, and then you get way out to what I think is also a salmon color, maybe it's red, but that's like 0.26% of the population. So when you get to these populations, you're moving away from the normal part of humanity, you're moving out to the edge cases of humanity. And if you're familiar with like full self-driving and things like that, you know about edge cases, corner cases. Those are those weird, 4, 5, 6 sigma things that only happen once in a great while. The same could be said for humanity. Those who make big changes to the world, both through their personality and just the luck of the draw, right? They were born at the right time in the right place, and they also had the right personality. They're a very small percent of the population. And one thing you might notice about this graph is that there are two tails on the graph. There's a positive tail and a negative tail, maybe you might say. So I'm going to get back to that in just a minute. But it's very clear from this graph and from thinking about humanity overall that most of us kind of sit in the middle part of that graph where we want a happy life. We don't want to rock the boat too much. We don't want to make big changes because we want to be peaceful, have a good life, make it through our 80 or 90 years or whatever, and just be content for the most part. And that's totally fine. I'm not arguing against that. I think the more and more you push getting away from this middle part of humanity, the potential for being much unhappier grows along with being on the edge, because you're just not part of normal humanity and you don't really fit in and you don't have the same goals that everybody else has. With summer nearly here, it's travel time for YouTube and vacation, and that means enjoying great social time with colleagues, family, and friends. That's why I love ZBiotics. ZBiotics allows me to enjoy nights out in moderation while feeling awesome the next morning. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. It's designed to work like your liver, but in your gut where you need it most. Just remember to drink ZBiotics before drinking alcohol, drink responsibly, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. Go to zbiotics.com/drknow or scan the QR code on the screen right now to get 15% off your first order when you use Dr. No at checkout. You can also sign up for a subscription using my code so you can stay prepared no matter the time or the occasion. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. At home or on the road, I drink a bottle of ZBiotics before going out, I stay hydrated between drinks, and the next day I feel great. ZBiotics is a real game changer for fun nights and the next day. Be sure to head to zbiotics.com/drknow and use the code DrKnow at checkout for 15% off. A big thanks to ZBiotics for sponsoring this episode, and now let's get back to it. So, of course, this is just my sort of autism spectrum way of looking at humanity, and it's a way of feeling perhaps a little bit better about not being normal myself. And I'm not saying by any means I'm an Elon Musk in the world. So, maybe I'm a little bit pushing the bounds of not being a normal person. Elon is way out there at the multiple sigmas. Who are some other, famous people in history that have made big changes in the world, have really, really pushed the world to be a different place than it was before? I would say Nikola Tesla, obviously the progenitor of the name Tesla that Elon Musk has taken for the car company. Perhaps Edison, definitely Steve Jobs, Henry Ford, also Adolf Hitler and Genghis Khan. So, we're looking at people who make big changes to the world that doesn't have to necessarily be positive changes to the world. They can be very, very negative changes to the world. I was actually just watching a Thoughty2 video, which was really, really interesting about Genghis Khan and how the CO2 levels of the world actually went down because he killed approximately 10% of the population of the planet at the time. He killed about 40 million people out of a population of about 400 million. So he actually made an environmental impact on the world because he killed so many people. So, there are people who make really, really big radical changes to the world and they don't do it in a positive way. But there are also people who make very, very positive changes to the world, like Nikola Tesla, who didn't get the credit he deserved and therefore didn't have quite as much of an impact as he should have. But over time, he's actually had more impact than he did during his lifetime. There's also Steve Jobs, who is very important. I'm using a Macintosh computer right now. I have an iPhone, and I bought an original Mac back in 1984. So, he made a big dent in the universe for sure. And he was the one, I believe, who came up with the term making a dent in the universe, which I think about a lot personally. There's also Henry Ford, an antecedent in terms of the automotive industry, who invented and perfected assembly line construction of very large, complex objects. So Elon is not alone in the world. He's not the only person who's ever made a change and made a big dent in the universe. But I will argue here that I believe he actually is, even beyond these people, more of an outlier and more of a unique personality. And we're very, very fortunate that he has done this to the good of humanity and not done it to the bad. So if we go back to that graph, of course, we can look at those two outliers, right? And there's the net negative outlier and there's the net positive outlier. So the further you push it out, the fewer and fewer people there are. But these people, depending on who they are, their personalities, the timing and all that stuff, can have a huge negative impact on the world, again, like Genghis Khan, or maybe it's Genghis Khan, I don't know. I know it's pronounced a little bit differently than Genghis, but whatever. But people like that can have a gigantic net negative, but then on the other end of the bell curve, the other outliers can have huge net positive effects. And even beyond the other people that I've talked about, like Thomas Edison, like Steve Jobs, like Nikola Tesla, I know they fought each other, like Henry Ford, like all of these people, Elon, in my mind, is having an even bigger outlier effect on the world, which is pretty remarkable. Part of that is just due to timing. It's the nature of the world that we have a super interconnected world right now. You can communicate all over the world instantly. He has 150 million followers or something like that. It's a massive number of followers on X. But beyond that, you have access to global supply chain logistics, the ability to sell to the entire globe. There are a lot of things just in terms of timing and luck that allow Elon Musk to do what he has done. If he was born 100 years ago, could have been a Henry Ford, and that would have been amazing that he built cars, and things like that. But he would not have been able to do stuff that he's able to do now. We simply didn't even have rockets 100 years ago, right? So the timing is part of this, but much beyond that is just his personality. You've got a person who self-admittedly is on the autism spectrum. He is incredibly mission-driven. He really, really believes what he believes in. Some of his tenets that he has talked about recently are free speech above all else, and that's why he bought Twitter and turned it into X. Making the world an environmentally better place, which of course is Tesla's mission. It's not just automobiles, but it's also energy generation and storage and also autonomy, which will create more safety on the roads, but also get a lot of cars off the road, especially gas cars. So that is a huge mission for him. Then also, of course, SpaceX, which I personally think he probably believes is the most important of these missions, which is to get humanity off the Earth, to create a secondary, a backup Earth on Mars, and then potentially into the outer solar system and into the stars. But he really, really is driven to get humanity off this planet and have us have a backup. Again, Elon is very clear about this. He doesn't not care about Earth. He wants everybody to make make Earth the best thing possible, which is why he has a company like Tesla, because he's trying to make the Earth a better place. But eventually we could nuke ourselves, or the AI singularity could happen and nuke us, or just an asteroid could come and nuke us, and eventually the sun's going to get big and it's going to dry up all the oceans and make life impossible on this planet anyway. So we have to get off the planet if we want to have long-term survival. So that's why I think it's his most important mission in his mind. It's like, get us off the planet, get us to Mars. Everything else is sort of focused on that. But at the same time, for the vast majority of the population, we are going to remain on Earth. So we better darn well make the future as bright as possible on the Earth. And then of course you've got Neuralink, and Elon's long-term goal for that is to have humans be able to interact with computers at a very high bandwidth speed, right? So you can plug in and you can talk to the computers and become a true cyborg. And in his mind, this plus XAI, and originally OpenAI before they became closed AI, all of these things were supposed to get humanity through the AGI singularity and have us come out on the other side in a good place where we are partners with computers rather than being slaves or being exterminated or something. So again, Elon has talked very specifically and has believed for a long time, because he started OpenAI back in the middle of the 2010s. He's believed for a long time that AGI, or artificial general intelligence, or artificial superintelligence, or more precisely artificially intelligent agents, as I always call it, he believes that that is the biggest threat to humanity in the near term, is that these things might become so smart and so uncaring of humanity that we could be stomped out by this AGI, whether on purpose or just accidentally, like we kick over an ant nest as we walk around. We humans often aren't even malicious towards ants or something. We just step on them because we don't really notice them or care. So of course the artificial superintelligence might be malicious towards humanity, but it also might not care about humanity. And Elon started OpenAI with Sam Altman, who, by the way, I believe really wants to make a big dent in the universe and wants to be one of these people out at the very, very edges. The interesting question, and I'm very concerned about this, and I'm going to do another video about this soon, is which end of the bell curve he's on. Is he on the net good or the net bad end of the bell curve? That is a really interesting question. But back to Elon, he himself really wants us to be able to survive and thrive through this singularity, through the AGI singularity. And in the meantime, of course, Neuralink is already doing amazing things, allowing a person, the first patient, to already control computers and play games and interact with the world through his brain. And assuming things keep going well with Neuralink, that is going to have a huge net positive on society. All of the people who are disabled and unable to move their arms or legs or things like that, Neuralink is going to help them in the short term. So that's a gigantic net positive, and I don't know that anyone can really argue with that. That's really pretty amazing. So these are Elon's accomplishments. How does he get this done? He gets it done through a kind of maniacal focus on the task, on getting humanity off planet Earth, on making the world a better place, on creating clean energy generation, storage, and transportation, on maximum truth-seeking and freedom of speech at all costs. And this actually costs him a great deal. Elon speaks his mind. He is radically honest and transparent. And he has opinions that I disagree with. I mean, everybody does if you get down to it. But he doesn't have that sort of social lubricant aspect of things where you kind of hide your real thoughts given an audience. You're like, nah, I'm not going to say my real opinion because I don't really want to be confrontational or something like that right now. It's just not worth it. Again, you want to kind of like, go towards the middle of that bell curve and just be a normal person and not really rock the boat very much under many circumstances. Elon does not have that gene. He's just like, whatever I think, this is what it's going to be. Agree with me, disagree with me, I don't care, I'm going to say it. And that is something that causes a lot of people's feathers to get ruffled. They're like, ooh, this person, he has these terrible opinions about things. I don't agree with them. Even if you agree with 95% of what Elon Musk says, if you disagree with 5%, a lot of people are really unwilling to go with the majority opinions matter more than the minority because we're very emotionally driven. We're not really intellectually driven. Many psychologists have talked about this. Our conscious minds are generally little storytellers, according to them, that just sort of make up reasons for what we do on a very unconscious, emotional sort of gut level. And so even if you agree with somebody to a large extent, if you disagree with them over some small points, and those are emotionally important to you, you can actually reject the rest of that person. And a lot of people, I believe, reject Elon Musk for that very reason. Even though the majority of what they're interested in, they want a better better world. They want a better future for their children. They want the coolness of rocketry and going into space, even if they don't care about another civilization or something. They want better care for people who are disabled. They generally want social good. And Elon Musk really wants social good. I really think he's on the net positive end of that bell curve, right? But people who agree with him on most of those things, and I think the majority of humanity is going to think that. Not many people think, oh, I want a terrible world in the future and stuff, right? Elon's generally pointing towards a good world. And the free speech thing too, I think generally people are like, yeah, I want free speech. But when it comes down to it, if somebody says something you really disagree with and you're like, oh, that person should be censored, do you really radically believe in free speech? Elon Musk radically believes in it. So even though I think that the majority of humanity believes the majority of what Elon Musk believes, those little outlier opinions that he says and the fact that he says them so honestly, so directly, without the little social lubricant of hedging his bets and stuff like that, that means that people have an emotional reaction to those few things that Elon talks about, and that creates a situation that even though the majority of the things you believe, he believes, those few things that you don't believe that he believes causes an emotional reaction, and you make up reasons why he is a bad person and why, you know, X, Y, or Z should happen to him, and he shouldn't be allowed to say what he says. But my response to that is you have to take Elon Musk as an entire package. The fact that he is on the autism spectrum, the fact that he is so incredibly mission focused, the fact that he has basically sacrificed his happiness. And again, I believe a lot of people at the edges of that bell curve generally are not happy people because, again, they're not in that normal realm. And most people privilege happiness over other things. And that tends to put us more in the middle of the bell curve. But the people out at the outer edges are more task-driven, more mission-driven, and that pushes them to be less happy. So my thought is, and I don't know Elon personally at all, but from seeing his interviews, from reading his biographies, he's not the happiest person in the world. He's also not the easiest person in the world to work for. So yes, all of these things are very much true, but do we want a world without Elon Musk in it? If we had an alternate universe where something had happened, he hadn't been born, he had happened to die in childhood or something, what would the world look like right now? If we just take out this one person, and it is weird, I'm not generally a great man person. I don't subscribe to that normally, but every once in a while, I think there really is a great man that comes around that actually makes a dent in the universe in a very, very significant way. And if you think about what 2024 would look like if Elon Musk was taken out of the picture, it would objectively be a much less amazing place to live in. We would not have commercial spaceflight nearly to the level that we have. We wouldn't have reusable rockets. We wouldn't have electric vehicles at mass scale. We wouldn't have them driving us around from place to place without intervention almost. We wouldn't have patients able to control computers with their brains from tiny little implants. And we wouldn't have free speech on X. That is a big deal. If Twitter was still Twitter and it was still kowtowing to the government, we wouldn't have free speech to the level that we do. For better or worse, free speech is a rough place to be, right? There are a lot of things that I disagree with that get said on X, but I very much respect the fact that we want free speech. So in my mind, at least, Elon Musk is a very, very pivotal person, and he really is almost unique in history. Again, partially because of timing, just because the world is so connected right now, so you can have a more global effect than you used to be able to much more quickly. But he is also way, way, way at the outlier part of the bell curve. There are very, very few people in history who can even compete. Very few people have even started one company that's made a dent in the universe like this. Elon Musk has started multiple ones. All of them are making big dents in the universe. That is pretty remarkable. And the reason why he does this is because he is who he is. You can't just go like, oh, we want the good Elon and not the bad Elon. But whatever that definition is, you can't have the one without the other. You have to have the whole package. Otherwise, he wouldn't be him. And for me, at least, I would much rather live in this world than an alternate universe that didn't have Elon Musk in it. All right, so that's my opinion on Elon Musk and why we need Elon Musk to be him, the full package, good and bad, whatever that definition is. I have a feeling some of you might vehemently disagree with me. If you agree or disagree, definitely let me know in the comments. And if you don't mind liking and subscribing while you're down there, it really helps out the channel. And finally, a big thanks once again to ZBiotics for sponsoring today's video. Be sure to check out my link in the description to get 15% off your order. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.